In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to place a texture onto a relief. If you click here for texture relief, this will open up a dialog box which allows you to place texture on a relief. So I'm going to select the whole relief to start with, so I'm going to create a texture over the whole of the relief which will include this zero plane. I can create spheres, ellipse, cones, pyramids, weaves, or I can create this from a file. So first of all I'm going to create a sphere texture. This is just going to create balls, and I'm going to leave the sizing just as it is, just to see what this is like, and then just click add. So there you can see that that's created a spherical texture all over this part. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to change the sizing of this, let's say 5mm, so it's twice as large, and I'm going to bring the Z height down to 0.5 and add that. So there you can see that that's added. So what I'm going to do now is to change the spacing for this. So if I undo that, and I can change the X spacing to 200, add that. So there you can see that that's changed the spacing in X. I could undo that, change it in Y, add that. So there you can see that that's given me that effect. I could also do the opposite to that, change it to 50, and they would be overlapping each other, and do the same thing on Y, and that would give me that effect. So I'm going to undo that, put the spacing back to 100%, and I'm going to create an ellipse this time. Now the horizontal percentage at the moment at 100, that will just create the spherical texture again. If I set the percentage to, let's say, 150 and add that, then you can see it's giving me the texture that I wish. I can change that to 200 and undo that, and it will stretch out the spherical parts a little bit more. I could change it to something drastic like 500, and there you can see that's given me some really large spherical shapes. You could undo that and change the size of this to 20, so there you can see it's just given me 5 ellipses for this texture. So I'm going to undo that, put these sizes back to how they were. I can create a cone, so I'll just add that. So there you can see that's given me a cone. I can undo that. The tip radius, let's try that at 50. So there you can see it's given me a sharper tip there. If I create that quite large, it will blend and give me a more blended sort of tip there. So what I'm going to do now is to create a pyramid and add that. So there you can see that's given me pyramids for the texture. Bring the truncation down to 100%. So there you can see it's given me a lot crisper pyramids there. I can undo that, and I can create a weave. So if I add that, you see that's created a weave for me. Just undo that, change the bar width to, let's say, 250, and then add that. Just zoom in so you can see this, and I'll change the size of that to 15. So there you can see it's given me a nice quilted sort of pattern, and I'm just going to undo that, because what I'm going to do now is create a sphere again. I'll do it at 5 again, and this time I'm going to use the selected vector. So the selected vector that I'm going to use is the polar bear's outline. So if I add that now, you can see that that's just adding that to the polar bear. So I'll undo that. I can change the size of this, make it a little bit smaller, and add that. So that's just adding the texture to the polar bear. I can also subtract this. So if I just zoom in, that's taking that away from the relief of the polar bear. Just undo it, make it a little bit larger so you can see that, and subtract it. So there you can see that that's subtracted the domes from the polar bear. So it's giving him that texture. I can undo that, and I can also do this on a selected colour. The selected colour is the primary colour, then the bottom left in the colour palette. If you take a look on the 2D view, you can see I've created this random paintbrush line here in red. So if you go to the 3D view and add that now, you can see it's just doing that under that selected colour. So I could just specify a colour and it would just create the texture to that colour. So I'll undo that, and this time I'm going to do it to the selected vector. So select my vector, but this time I'm going to do this from File. So if I click File, I can browse to an image that I have. So let's say this texture here, which is for some fur, and you can see the preview of that there. I can change the width of this if I wished, and the height, like so. So I'm going to change this to, let's say, 75. I can also unlink that if I wanted to skew it. I can change the height of that. So let's say 0.5. And I can also blend the edges. So basically when it crosses over, it will just blend the edges together. So I'm just going to add this now, and you can see that that's added the fur texture to my polar bear from a file. So that is how to create texture on your reliefs.